Hello and welcome, welcome to the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. Hi, how are y'all doing? Hopefully well. I am, of course, your host, Mark Nez, and all that good jazz. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, I'm saying that from something else I've listened to. Definitely, that's not a B thing. But if you have any questions and all that jazz, there is a loud ass car outside. Holy crap. But you can always leave a comment on this here episode, and I will respond to it next episode. I am just filling in for time though, because I have no idea what to talk about. I've got a handful of games, including the Thaumaturge, Tribreaker, A Sacred Symbols Odyssey, Entropy Survivors, Highway Police Simulator, and Silk. Forgot to write down Silk, but I remember that I played it, so got some games to talk about. News-wise, not all that much that really stood out to me and grabbed me in a way that I feel a strong inclination to talk about. There's some Ubisoft stuff, some Tencent and the Guillemot family, whatever their name is, clashing over who will still be in control with a potential buyout or something. There's also the Wild game that I was really excited for. I guess it's been officially, I don't know if it's ever officially canceled, but that, I guess there was turmoil over the way that was handled. And then there's internal struggles with the development of Beyond Good and Evil 2, which I bring up because I don't know why they're making a Beyond Good and Evil 2. I understand that there is this, in my eyes, seemingly small subset of people who really like that first game and would like to see a sequel, but I don't know how large that audience, that potential audience would be, because I tried playing that first game much later down the road, the Xbox Live Arcade version, and I bounced off it after some frustrating element. I think it might have been related to some stealth bit, and even before that, I did not understand why people love the game so much. Great music. That's what I remember the most. Some really great music in it, but playing it, not so great. I feel like a Beyond Good and Evil 2 sequel would fall into the same space as the Mirror's Edge sequel. People could say the way or the reason that game flopped was because it wasn't that good, but I don't think it was bad. It was just, I don't know why people didn't like that game. Did it not play well? I know it had the more open exploration aspect to it, which appealed to me. That made it appealing, but maybe the mission structure and stuff like that was not as great. But outside of that, though, the main story, I guess, of the week would be the Game Awards, which will be, if you're listening to this podcast, as soon as it goes up later today. But for most people, this will probably be watched or listened to after the fact. That said, the biggest early thing about the Game Awards is that apparently there will be, according to Jason Schreier, after appearing on an episode of Kinda Funny Games Daily, 2 holy shit moments. 2 moments that are trailers you're going to see, and they're going to make you say, holy shit, I wasn't expecting to see that here. And I don't know what those could be, because one, it seemed like it was framed as these will be unannounced games that'll get teaser trailers. I think one obvious one would be whatever From Software is working on next, because it feels like it's time to at least tease that. And I could definitely see that being at the Game Awards. But then the other one, what would it be? People are speculating Naughty Dog's next game. I think that's too big for the Game Awards. I think that's something Sony would want to say for their own show. So if we remove that, I have no idea. I would have said the next game from the It Takes Two developer, but I believe they revealed that already a month or so ago. There's maybe a new Double Fine game, but that doesn't feel big enough to be a holy shit moment. It would be cool. I'd like to hear what they've been working on since Psychonauts 2. It's been a while, I think. But I can't really think of anything that would be holy shit that we don't already know about. Maybe that wasn't one of the stipulations. And in that case, there's plenty of stuff. Actually seeing Splinter Cell would be incredible. Seeing BioShock 4, whatever it is, would be amazing. There are a lot of games that are known quantities that would be cool to see a little more of in some way, shape, or form. Resident Evil 9 has been officially announced, I think. So that would be one that we haven't really seen anything of. Yes, correct? Which would be cool. And be, I don't know, holy shit, because it's such a known quantity. But for me, the biggest announcement that would get me excited, but I think we're still too early for, is with them properly announcing Rebirth, Final Fantasy Rebirth coming to PC. We get some kind of official, hey, it's coming to Xbox too. Whether it's just remake is coming to Xbox now or next year in April or something along those lines. Or here's remake now, April you get Rebirth, but who knows what the exclusivity terms are exactly in regard to how long they have it exclusive. No, but that would get me excited. But I'm very curious what we're gonna find out, what we're gonna see, etc. during the Game Awards, because people are really playing this year up. 10 years, so it is a big milestone for the Game Awards, but I don't know. I'm just tired. I have not been sleeping well at all. It has been extra bad. The worst of the worst, though, was a day I went to sleep. I woke up 2 hours later. I was like, this is not... I can kind of fuck with 4 to 5 hours, but 2, no. So I stayed in bed, woke up again an hour later. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I think I maybe got another hour of sleep or something. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Speaking of messes, no. That's not nice. That's not nice at all. Let's just get on to what I've been playing and call this a short show. Does that sound good? If it doesn't, too bad, because that's what we're doing. So the Thaumaturge is a story-driven RPG where you play a Thaumaturge, who is a person able to see or sense, feel the emotions and whatnot of other individuals and objects and stuff like that. And it takes place during the early 1900s in Russian-occupied Warsaw. A lot of Polish stuff going on in this. Me being part Polish. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm Polish. But you end up going back to Warsaw after your father dies. And I I played it for a little under 3 hours, and it just never clicked with me. The combat, when I got into combat, was not very engaging. Very simple turn-based combat where you have slow attacks, quick attacks. They will give you different bonuses. Obviously, a quick attack will hit an enemy before they can hit you, so it could be to your advantage to do that depending on their health and all of that. You can add modifiers as you unlock your skill tree that will help out your attacks. So you can, for instance, assign your quick attack the modifier that will give you a 50% chance of stopping the enemy's next attack, which is kind of all right. And you have these Salutors, who are these mythical demon-like creatures who are related to various flaws. The one that you have with you at the start is, I forget the name of the Salutor, but they are related to your flaw of pride. And then as you play through the story, you'll encounter certain humans who have these various Salutors tied to them, and then you can tame them yourself and add them to your party and use them in battle. You can only use one at a time, and they will have different strengths and weaknesses that make them better or worse for various battles against different types of people. The game is very transparent about which one is going to give you a bonus or not. But it is very much so a story-driven, character-driven RPG. It is very heavily reliant on the strength of that, because at least so far, the combat is a minimal aspect of the game. It is very much so just about exploring the world, talking to people, finding objects of interest, notes, newspapers, etc., talking to people, and as you develop your abilities, your force skills, mind, heart, something else and something else, you're able to then also glean additional information from certain objects by having your skill in a certain place. The problem for me is just that I wasn't really feeling the story. There is an aspect of the world that is interesting, but I don't think it comes together, in part because a lot of the voice acting and writing can be awkward in its delivery and just the direction it's going in. Your dude says thank you a lot in a way that it really bugs me. I don't know, that's a very personal thing, but just the way they say thank you, it drives me nuts a little. I think it reminds me of some old podcast. It might have been one with Scott Promley going, thank you, and I just keep hearing that in my head. So not going to be a lot of people who have that issue with it, but disregarding that, I just wasn't really drawn in by the story. I gave it a fair shot, I'd say, just about 3 hours, and it just wasn't doing it for me. It's not bad by any means, it's just not for me. That is the Thaumaturge. Tribreaker, a Sacred Symbols Odyssey, is part Brick Breaker, so Arkanoid, Breakout, and then part a whole bunch of other shit. This is the sequel to Twin Breaker, and this is very much so for fans of Last Stand Media, which, if you're unfamiliar, is Colin Moriarty's little media outlet whatever you want to call it, Greg Miller and company has Kind of Funny, Colin Moriarty after leaving Kind of Funny, Great Last Stand Media. And this is around the PlayStation podcast, Sacred Symbols, those three hosts. And clearly it's a fictional story, obviously. But it's from a story standpoint, specifically first. I don't think it's funny or that well written, and I think you're only going to get anything out of it if you are very deep in the fandom of Sacred Symbols, because then maybe there's a lot of stuff there that will give you a nice little chuckle, various callbacks and stuff like that. But as someone who's listened to their podcasts here and there, I didn't get much out of it. You can't skip it all, of course, and then just play the game. And then in that case, it's okay. It, for the most part, is maybe half of the time it is a brick breaker where you control two paddles, one on each side. You control them simultaneously with the two analog sticks, and they can cover half of the screen, which can be kind of taxing on the brain in certain levels the way they're handled. And that may be a bit much for some people, because it is a more challenging game. But it plays well. The thing that I don't know how I feel about, though, is that it likes to really play around with things. So there will be levels where you are instead. One of the other things with it that is kind of unique and I do like is that with the brick breaking aspect, you can also manipulate the ball that you're firing and breaking these bricks with a minimal amount of fuel that will rebuild over time, or you can get some power-ups that will also refill your fuel. And this allows you to turn it in not various directions, turn it left or right, and it can help you get through a level faster, get that last piece that is a little awkward to reach organically, or create nice little chains by manipulating the ball so that it gets into a certain pocket and starts just destroying a whole bunch of bricks at one time. But then in later levels, you're just controlling the ball through an area. So you're just kind of flying it through an area and avoiding the walls and just trying to get it through some space, some designated area. And then there's a Frogger-esque level or two. There was, what else? I think there might have been a few areas that were kind of shmuppish, very light shmuppish. But they start playing around with what other types of games it can be, and they don't always work. There's a handful of levels that play like Snake, and I love Snake, but I don't like the way the Snake game feels here, because it feels like the ball and its trail are slightly off where they should be, so that you can hit the edge of various obstacles in a way that I don't like. I wish it was either clear, you're going to run straight into this object, or you're going to avoid it. Not you are going to graze it and die from that. But I played through the first 30 levels. I think there are 40 in total. The 30th level, I just beat this boss that was kind of annoying. But it's okay. I don't really see why you would get it if you're not a fan of sacred symbols, though. I think that is a lot of the appeal. Not that I think the game is bad. Again, I think it's pretty all right. And some of the times I was quite impressed with it. But I think it should have focused on a few things instead of... I like when it did the little Frogger level or two. It was fine, I guess, but it didn't bring anything special to the Frogger gameplay aspect. So I was like, why do we have this Frogger diversion? The snake thing didn't add anything new to Snake. So why are we doing this? It does have some fresh, fun ideas with the Brick Breaker gameplay. And I just think maybe it should have focused on that and explored more ideas there, as opposed to, we're just going to have a few levels that play like Snake. Here there are a few levels that play like Frogger. Not so much. But there is quite a bit of exposition to start it out. And the paddles, which are the two ships piloted by Colin and Chris, and then Dustin being the new third chair of the podcast. New in terms of for this game, but been there for a while. He is in the ball ship, and it's very phallic, and they even comment on it in the story. And it's just like, why does that have to look like a dick? It's not funny. It's just, oh, all right, cool. You made a dick ship ball thing. Awesome. Whatever, it's fine. Try Baker. Give it a try if you want. I don't think it's that much, so it won't break the bank. I'm a good writer too. Next up is Entropy Survivors, which is a survivors like that allows you to control when you fire and where you're aiming if you so choose, or you can turn on auto aiming and auto firing, which I like to do myself in all these types of games, because I think the issue with survivors likes and these auto aimers, auto battlers, auto shooters is that when they allow you to control all that yourself, while I appreciate that and I don't want them to take that away, it then feels like it's hard not to compare it to the most obvious closest genre, which would be a twin stick shooter. And it just never can compete or compare, because the way survivors likes work, I don't like that. This does not roll off the tongue. I hate that. But the way they work is on a much slower basis. You're typically firing much slower. It can increase over time with pickups and power-ups and stuff of that nature. But to start out, you're typically firing very slow. And it's much more about avoidance and then getting your pickups, adding new abilities, new weapons, so on and so forth. So it's nowhere near as satisfying or as fast as a twin stick shooter. So I don't really want to have control, because I'm going to be thinking about that, and it's not going to feel good. So I prefer in these games to just let it do its thing while I focus on avoiding enemies and going after pickups and so on. But I appreciate the option being there. That said, even though you can turn on auto aiming and auto firing, this is only true for the robot part of your vehicle. Because in the game you play a frog pilot on a mech. And you go through these levels doing what you do in Survivors likes, which is avoiding enemies while taking them out and getting the pickups from them as they die. to increase the power of your frog and mech through new weapons or boost to various stats. In regards to its quality and all that, I quite liked it. I like the look of it. It is bright and colorful and has this parasitic type of vibe to everything, the world and the enemies you're fighting. It feels very parasitic, a bunch of parasites. And what I think really makes the game stand out over others is the various power-ups and certain weapons in the game. So one of the pickups you can find during a run, and the runs are very traditional. Survive for 20 minutes, kill the boss of the level, move on to the next area. You have, I think, 5 different worlds that have maybe 5 to 6 levels each of varying difficulties. And some of the levels are, I hate the way, I think the 4th area is designed where it's a much narrow linear space. Instead of it being an open area, it's just sort of a very, very long hallway. Hated that level. I felt way too constricted. But where the game excels is in the unique elements of the gameplay. Also, like I said, your mech suit the robot will fire and auto aim on itself, but you, as the frog, have a gun that starts off as just a pistol, but then you can purchase additional ones like a rocket launcher, shotgun, machine gun, etc. That you still have to fire yourself with the right trigger. I think it isn't super clear at first. You have to figure it out for yourself. It doesn't really help you figure out when the gun is empty and it's reloading, because it's not super clear in the interface. The UI is not that great at showing you, okay, this is, you don't know how many bullets. I don't know if it shows you or gives you any indication of where you are in a clip, and you can't reload until you've fired all your bullets. So you can't fire some and then you have a lull in the enemies attacking you and then reload then. I mean, you just keep firing until you reload. But I don't think that is super clear. Get back up here, show notes. But the thing I like about the game and what kept me coming back was the gameplay has a few really satisfying elements. One of the pickups you can find is roll up. This is a little ball you pick up, and then it allows you to roll up enemies in a very Katamari-esque way. I think there might be a cap of 500 enemies, because that is the most I've ever had at one time, and it would seem odd that I just happened to roll 500 enemies exactly, and then the meter went down. But when you get this power up, this pickup roll up, you have a little meter that is constantly going down, and as you're rolling up enemies, it refills it, and the more enemies you have, the faster it goes down. So you're trying to get up as many enemies as possible, and it's just a fun little way to spice up the gameplay, is to have a little section that plays like Katamari. There is a pickup that'll turn the game space into a pinball table with flippers and bumpers, allowing you to attack enemies when you are hit by one of the flippers. It turns into a little pinball and you go bouncing around, wrecking havoc through a bunch of enemies. That's pretty fun too. The various power-ups that you can get are fun, though some, like in any of these games, seem way more powerful than others. The one I liked the most was the Cosmic Truck ability, I think it's called, which just sends, at first at its weakest power, it'll just send one truck that comes in and runs over enemies and hits them. Nothing too crazy. But when you get that thing way super leveled, you will just have a fleet of trucks coming in every 10 or so seconds, driving over a whole bunch of enemies, and it is super powerful. I love that ability. You have a pair of giant hands that can clap enemies, and other various stuff that is, it's nice. It's a fun little one, and there's a big old skill tree. You can, with the drops that you find in the game, you can upgrade their starting stats. So if you have a missile barrage, for instance, you can have it. You can increase how many missiles you get when you first pick it up, the time it takes to use it again. What the hell is that called? And so on. And then you can also adjust for various power-ups with the currency for it, the drop rate of it. So will you you can increase it by 100%, how often you see something, or decrease it by 50%. How if you don't want to see a power up, so you can adjust the RNG a bit to your liking, and then you can try out different mechs with different abilities, different weapons, upgrade them, give them a few stats to them and a few extra powers. Like with the pistol, you can have it so that when you fire, you also fire a bullet in an additional direction, or it explodes on contact. With every weapon, you can give it 3 of these little perks. But it's a fun little Survivors like, with a satisfying gameplay loop of leveling up your character to make them stronger, with a nice look to it. Solid little game. Highway Police Simulator is broken. It's that simple. I play it on Xbox, but it's fucking broken. It controls like shit. The vehicle controls are so loose and drifty that you will think your controller has stick drift by how poorly it controls. It runs like ass. It has a lot of slowdown, whether you're in a car or on foot investigating a scene. It has weird bugs. At one point, my car, when I was driving it, just for a second, I was in it. I don't know if the model or the whole car, it just got up in my face, and I was in the car. And then went back to normal. The voice acting, like, it's a fucking mess right now. Will it ever be fixed? I have no idea, because I'm surprised it came out in the state it is currently in. So there's not really anything else to say there. It just, if you see it and you think, oh, that looks like it could be an alright time, no, it's not. Plays horribly, feels terrible. It just, maybe it'll be fixed. There's certain elements that are always going to be janky and not great, but at the very least, it needs to not have so much slowdown and control so poorly. That is where that game currently is. It is amusing at times when you're investigating an accident, and then you're on the highway, you're investigating an accident on the opposite side, oncoming traffic. There's just weirdo physics things happening. You just see cars flipping in the air, and you're like, well, that's fucking weird. That's amusing. I think that's amusing. It could take you out if you're trying to get really immersed in the experience, the job that is being a highway police officer. Maybe you wouldn't like that, but from somebody who's just like, oh, this is a video game, that's like, yeah, it's amusing. But what's not amusing is driving around and having it controlled so fucking poorly and featuring slowdown when the game does not look like a game that should have any kind of slowdown. There shouldn't be any performance issues here. But that's Highway Police Simulator. Avoid it for now, potentially forever if it's never fixed. It needs a lot of work right now. Then the last game is Silk, which is a first-person exploration game. I'm not even sure how to frame it. you are on the Silk Road in, I think, Italy, maybe. But you're just thrown into this world, and you are able to. You have some basic little tasks that you can do, but really you can just kind of go at your own pace, do what you want, and explore this world however you like, as a more peaceful person, as a more hostile person. And I kind of like it. There is a peaceful aspect to it. It has a very early 90s PC vibe to it in terms of its look. And it likes to talk about how it's, just in the description, I think it says it's the largest world in any game ever, because it's 3 million square miles, I think. Which is impressive, but it is a game. It's not like you're gonna be seeing a lot of the same assets reused. So it feels very much like Fuel, if you remember that little driving game, where I don't know if there was an end. You could just keep driving and driving and driving, but once you hit a certain point, you're just going to be on a desert driving with nothing to find, nothing to do. Yeah, sure, it keeps going, but is there anything substantial there? Nah, that's not the case here. I think it's just probably procedurally generated with a bunch of random encounters and stuff of that nature. But it's kind of just fun to be in the world and explore it and do what you want to do, how you want to do. In some ways, it feels like a first-person Oregon Trail, where you have your caravan and the people in your group who have various strengths and weaknesses. Some might work better with animals or be more battle-centric, better at trade, so on and so forth. And when you have various encounters, you will get a handful of them to pick from, and they will each give you some kind of inclination of how well equipped they are to handle each situation. And you get to pick one of them. Then it does its RNG thing. Oh, the person who's good with animals. You ran into a wolf. They were able to befriend the wolf, and they were able to gather food for the entire caravan. So you gained 15 provisions. Stuff like that. It's just, I don't know what the end game really is, but in terms of just being in a world and exploring it, it's kind of nice. But at the same time, I don't know where after a few hours, I'm not sure what else I want to do. I've run into some people, had some fights. I ran into a random person or a group of people, got into a fight, and after we won and scared them off, I had 4 advisors to pick from. 2 of them said some shit, and both of them ended with, "And let's burn their village to the ground." I'm like, let's fucking hit the brakes. What do these other 2 have to say? I don't want to burn these. We got into an encounter. We scared them off. Let's leave them be. I'm not trying to. I don't want to do shit like that. So I used one of the other ones, and we were good. But it's all right. I'd be curious more so how the game appeals or doesn't to younger audiences. Because for me, part of the appeal is that reminiscent aspect of it, and being alive and remembering playing games on PC that harken back to this. And I don't know if it would appeal to younger folk, because it looks, again, like a PC game from the 90s, from the early 90s. and in many ways plays like how it's just it's all right. It's all right. But that's Silk. Probably of these games is the one. No, Entropy Survivors would be the one I was hooked by the most. But then Silk is a decent second. But yeah, that's it for what I've been playing. So let us just call it a show. Why don't we? I'm not doing it right now, but I am playing around with some changes to the layout of the podcast on the YouTube's, the visual side, where I will have in a little window, picture-in-picture, gameplay of what I'm talking about as I am talking about it. This is the plan for future episodes. It'll be starting next year with Attack the Backlog after the Hi-Fi Rush episodes, probably late January, mid-January. You'll see the first there. But then I might also do it with this here podcast as well. We'll see. We will see. But for now, that will do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, some fancy Discord roles, a private Discord channel, the soon-to-be weekly, I think, Sausage Dump, where I just talk about random stuff or tackle random tiers and stuff of that nature. Or you can just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have both a wonderful rest of your day, a lovely rest of your week, and a wonderful weekend. But for now, adios, arrivederci.
It's go time. Odyssey. It's go time.